Start your engines!
And on the straightaway here, the roar of the racing engine already builds thousands of horsepower as they echo out their challenge back and forth across this starting field. The rows of 2, 12, 24 Indy cars ready now to take the green flag. You saw Johnny Rutherford sitting. There is Danny Sullivan as he prepares to start this race from the second row. The great Mario Andretti, quiet in contemplation, ready to roll out as the Indy cars are ready to race in Canada. The front row, Bobby Rahal, Roberto Guerrero, both ready to race. And a magnificent crowd here today at the Toronto Exhibition Place. All of the field indicating that they are ready. Hands in the air by the crew chiefs, telling the officials this car is ready to race. All up and down the line, everyone ready to go. 183 miles, 103 laps. Here is the grid for the Molson Toronto Indy. On the pole, looking for his third win of the season, is Bobby Rahal. Alongside, Roberto Guerrero looks for the second victory of his career. The second row, Emerson Fittipaldi, just fresh off a win at Cleveland, still holds the track record here. And Danny Sullivan alongside in last year's 1986 March. Mario Andretti on the inside of the third row, still sore from injuries suffered in a crash at Milwaukee. And his son Michael is alongside. He was the winner of that Milwaukee race. The fourth row, Al Unser Jr. He is currently fourth in the point standing, but has not scored a win this season. And Jeff BRABHAM on the outside has 4 second places in his career. He has never won an IndyCar race. The same is true in the fifth row on the inside for Derek Daly, who is looking for his first IndyCar victory. And Kevin COGAN sits to the outside. It was a year ago at Phoenix that he scored his first IndyCar win. And we take a look at the rest of this IndyCar field. Now in the back half of the field, the 3 former winners of IndyCar races. Tom Sneva is there, and there's the look over the shoulder of our camera car. We take a look at the rest of this starting field. Tom Sneva, of course, has IndyCar victories to his credit. And the rookie, Jeff McPherson, as he's ready to roll. Jose Legarza is there, as is Arie Luyendyk. And we're looking over the right-hand shoulder of Ludwig Heimrath. Fabrizio Barbaza looking for Rookie of the Year honors this year in kart. And Rick Mears, who has not had a win in over a year now. Ludwig Heimrath, Dick Simon in the 9th row. The 10th row, Johnny Rutherford, 3-time Indianapolis champion, and Randy Lewis, who feels he's better on the road courses. Rick Miskiewicz, the former Can-Am champion, and John Richards, a rookie this year in kart IndyCar racing. And the 12th and final row, Scott Goodyear and Dale Coyne. 24 cars, all ready and set to go. It should be a magnificent afternoon here. Gigantic crowd. The Canadians really enjoy this race. Now this course at Toronto is a complicated temporary circuit. Jackie Stewart had a chance to take a look at it.
It took the pole setter just over a minute to get round this short racetrack. From the start-finishing line, the cars go around to turn 1. It's a second gear corner. They accelerate hard right up into 5th gear for this long straight that takes them up to about 190 miles an hour before a first gear corner, up into 2nd, into 3rd gear for a left-hand bend. They go into 2nd just there to accelerate up into 3rd, then into 4th gear before just there. Then it's back into 2nd gear again, accelerating hard, then up to 3rd, to 4th, to 5th gear before getting back to the start-finishing line, and about 14 gear shifts in total.
So that's the circuit here at Toronto as the field now circles behind the PPG pace cars. Everyone's set and ready to go. All engines started, though Jeff BRABHAM had a hesitation on the grid. He is in the field and ready to roll. But a new story just developing. Let's go to the pits and Gary Gerould.
Oh, we're in the pits of Roberto Guerrero, Vince Granatelli Racing. As the car went through technical inspection a short time ago, the kart inspectors did not like an extension on a piece of bodywork paneling down on the side pods at the rear suspension. They ruled that about 1/4 of an inch was going to have to be taken off. Vince Granatelli and his team have acceded to that request. They have now made the modification on the bodywork, but the car has run all weekend long in that configuration. What they don't know is how the car will now respond to this change. They're very concerned for Roberto Guerrero, who starts in the front row, Paul.
So Gary Gerould will keep a close eye on Roberto Guerrero. Now let's go further up the pits and Bruce Jenner.
Thank you, Paul. I'm in Roger Penske's pit, and they've had such a great tradition of winning over the years. But this year it's been a struggle with only one victory at the big one, the Indianapolis 500 with Al Unser Sr. But the rest of the year, victory has eluded them. They've been trying to develop the Penske chassis, and it has not moved along as quick as they would like it to. So in this race, Roger Penske decided to give his drivers the best chance they can. He brought 2 cars, the Penske car and last year's March. They tested both and decided to go with the March. And Danny Sullivan put it in the second row, and he drove it very hard in qualifying. So this is probably the best chance that Danny Sullivan has had to win a race. Paul?
Well, Danny Sullivan driving that year-old car, but remember, a year-old Penske car served Al Unser very well at the Indianapolis 500. Well, the weather here today in Toronto at the moment, it's heavily overcast. There was a threat of rain a bit earlier in the day. The possibility of rain moving in here. Bobby Rahal asked about it and in fact has used his rather extensive weather intelligence services to find out what the weather conditions would actually be for the race, and he expects the rain to come through just a little bit after the checkered flag, hopefully one that Rahal says will belong to him. We watch the cars as they begin now the pace lap, the final circuit before the green flag here in Toronto.
Well, this Toronto track mixes itself between a road course and the exhibition centre itself, or the exhibition place. You're seeing now what is normally used for street cars to travel along the shoreline here of Lake Ontario. The cars warming those tyres up as they traditionally do before the start of any race. But the racetrack, I think, has been very well planned by the Torontoian people here. They've been able to build this in a way that's not all sharp right-hand bends, which has, frankly, in the past been so typical of temporary racetracks. So they have done a very good job. I've got a particular affection for Canada and in a way for Toronto. I won a couple of Canadian Grand Prix just up the road at Mossport, which of course is a road course. And I've raced here in the Can-Am. As Paul Page did say, they're tremendously enthusiastic about their motor racing. Gilles Villeneuve, a great driver, of course, Formula One driver, was sadly killed a few years ago. His brother Jacques Villeneuve has raced in this formula, but is not here today.
We watch now as they conclude the pace lap. We mentioned Jeff Brabham. His car has been pulled off the circuit at one of the turns. They say it's not drivable. So here is the front row. Bobby Rahal and Roberto Guerrero. The single pace car heads into the pit area. We watch for the green flag now. Nick Finaro, the starter, has the green flag in hand. We watch at the starting line. The field well aligned in the front rows as they close up nice and close behind one another. And there's the green flag, and we are racing in Toronto. As Bobby Rahal moves to the outside, sweeps across the front of the field, and we've got a problem in the first turn already. One car off the edge of the course.
It looks like Dick Simon, huh? Dick Simon, I think it is, who spun off, stalled the engine. He's not able for him to get it restarted again. That's a problem, because once that engine stalls, remember the engines are hot, they're turbocharged, and they can take a lot of starting. They are the oldest driver on the racetrack, and sadly, it may just be the last lap he'll do today if they can't restart this motor.
So the first turn under the yellow flag as the corner workers try and get Dick Simon pushed out of the way. Bobby Rahal jumped into the lead as we look from Ludwig Heimrath's car. Now, he's back about 17th position right now on lap number 1 of this 103-lap race around this 1.78-mile circuit. You can see the downtown of Toronto as he comes through that turn here and comes back to the left, heading now for the pit straight.
Well, that's behind the stadium there. You can see the stadium, the baseball and football stadium, as they go through this left-hand bend, tricky left-hand bend, taking 4th gear, shifts into 5th gear around now as he starts crossing that finishing line, back into 2nd gear for Heimrath. The yellow flag still flying there. You can see Simon's car must still be tucked in there.
So they fly the yellow flag in the first turn as Bobby Rahal leads the first lap. You can see he is pursued by Roberto Guerrero. Then Danny Sullivan is dropped into third as Guerrero comes wide on the exit of that turn, and Sullivan tries.
It looked to me like he missed a gear there. Guerrero did not pick up correctly. I think he may have engaged the wrong gear. He may have put it into fourth gear instead of second gear. He managed to recover and managed to keep Danny Sullivan behind as we go back again to our camera here. This coverage being brought to us with this, I think, on-car cameras give the spectator at home and television a tremendous picture. You can see how much there is happening. You can even see some of the dials working there. That's the boost dial that you see working there to see how much boost is going into that engine through the turbocharger.
And from time to time, you'll see Heimrath's right hand come down, pick up the gear shift, and move through the gears as he comes past the pits one more time. Now, again, you're watching from about 17th position. The leader of the race is Bobby Rahal. He's being pursued by Roberto Guerrero, Danny Sullivan, Emerson Fittipaldi, and Michael Andretti as he works his way around this circuit. But for a temporary, often temporary circuits are criticized, but this one they say is quite good.
Every racing driver I've spoken to really enjoy the fact there's a stationary yellow flag out here for Bobby Rahal as he goes through here, accelerating in the tighter part of the racetrack now. Rahal very well prepared. A very calculated driver. He does not look like the spectator's image of a racing driver, a bespectacled man, thinning in hair, but really a man who thinks about his motor racing very positively.
And leading this race, picking up where he left off last year, the winner of the inaugural race trying to get his second victory here in Toronto. Second is Roberto Guerrero, followed by Danny Sullivan, Fittipaldi, and Michael Andretti. We'll be right back. This is Paul Page with Jackie Stewart, and we are back in Toronto as Bobby Rahal continues his lead. He jumped into the lead from the green flag. Immediately was pursued by Roberto Guerrero, and Danny Sullivan came up from the second row, along with Michael Andretti, who jumped ahead. Michael now lies in fourth place, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi.
These cars have opened up quite a gap. It is interesting to note that when we were looking at Danny Sullivan following Roberto Guerrero, he wasn't falling into his slipstream. Michael Andretti, famous son of famous father, adapting himself well to this kind of racing. He's tied up for 2 more years with this same team. And of course, he's looking for a bit of success. He's well placed in the point standing, but he doesn't seem to be in contention over the last 2 or 3 races. We haven't been able to see him pulling out the kind of performance that I would have expected him to get in there. You can see, of course, Kevin COGAN, the yellow flag still being waved for that truck that is sitting there. He's trying to pull back. I think it may be Dick Simon's car that they're trying to pull back, but certainly it's a fairly slow process.
So that's in a particularly fast section of the course as well. Dick Simon's disabled car there, and the Horton vehicle's trying to get him off. As the leaders come by, there is your leader, in fact, Bobby Rahal. He's been averaging about 99 miles an hour per lap. He is still pursued by Roberto Guerrero and Danny Sullivan. No change there at all.
Well, the truck, in fact, is pulling in Jeff McPherson's car. That's the problem out there at Station 9. He's got problems, so that's why the yellow flag that you saw earlier there was being waved to warn the drivers there's an obstacle in the way.
All right, let's go down to the pits now. This report from Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, in this situation, it's really ironic. Jeff BRABHAM went out early, and the problem was one that rested with his teammate, Rick Gallis, who owns both cars, now out of the race. What happened?
Well, I really haven't talked to Jeff other than he said that Jeff McPherson was warming up his tires, and somehow they got together and it put him out of the race.
So the cars made contact with each other in a warm-up lap?
That's correct, and it's just one of those things. I really don't blame Jeff because it's just, you know, it wasn't our day, and now both cars are out, and it's too bad because we came here and worked hard for 4 days and had a good chance to win the race, but, you know, what will be will be.
Well, some really tough misfortune in Toronto for Team Gallis, Paul.
Well, Jackie Stewart, I wonder what Ken Tyrrell or one of your owner-managers would have said to you if that had happened with your teammate.
Well, it does happen from time to time. In the very first lap of the Belgian Grand Prix earlier this year, the 2 Tyrrell teammates came together, in fact, totally destroyed one car. So it does happen, but it shouldn't happen, of course. And I always think that it's particularly dangerous to be running too much of action in your tires to heat them up at the beginning of a race. But look, incidentally, while we've been speaking of that, it does seem that Bobby Rahal has got a bit of an advantage now.
Now we're looking at a fight for fourth place. That's Michael Andretti being chased by Emerson Fittipaldi and then Mario Andretti as again they come through that yellow zone. And I'm not sure, but it appeared earlier that I saw Johnny Rutherford's car being pulled aside as well. We'll check on that report as we watch this fight for fourth. Remember, Rahal is the leader, then Guerrero, then Danny Sullivan, and there you see Sullivan coming through. That is the third place car, and right behind him is Michael Andretti, but that's closing down on the leaders.
Yes, it does seem that Michael Andretti is closing on Danny Sullivan a wee bit too, and he's lost the close contact that he had to Roberto Guerrero.
So at Toronto, 103 laps are scheduled here. 8 are complete. Bobby Rahal is the leader. Roberto Guerrero rides in second place. Interesting question today seems to be one of how much fuel will it take. As we watch Emerson Fittipaldi dart to the inside. Can he get past Michael Andretti? Indeed he does. But Michael comes in right. Look at Mario come to the inside as well.
That was a very mature move by Fittipaldi, one that you would expect to see a road racer making. He's well used to doing moves like that. We see it in slow motion. He comes up the inside of Michael Andretti. Andretti tries to move over a little bit, but it's what you know as snookering the other driver. He can't retaliate. He can't move over. There is not enough road to do it. And Emerson Fittipaldi executed that exactly in the right way.
So Emerson Fittipaldi picks up fourth place as a result of that pass, and for the moment, it looked like Mario Andretti almost had a shot as his son as well. Now Emerson Fittipaldi begins to pull away as we see multiple yellow flags being displayed at the starting line, which of course covers down into the first turn. They have several cars that they're trying to get towed off of this circuit. There's the standing yellow in the first turn.
Well, the multiple yellow flag means be prepared to stop if necessary. You could find that the racetrack itself could be blocked. So you can see the pace car is out, the drivers are coming under control, and the whole racetrack's under yellow. So this means that any lead that Rahal had built up, of course, now gets destroyed. And this does a few things. First of all, it allows everybody to cool off a little bit. It also saves on fuel consumption, and that could be a small issue here.
Difficult to get race cars off of this circuit, so Rahal loses what was a 2-second lead. Roberto Guerrero was in second, Danny Sullivan in third. And the race is now slowed. We'll be back to Toronto after this. As the field begins to accelerate now, the green flag lies just ahead. And there it is, and Bobby Rahal accelerates. Now Roberto Guerrero has to move around the 27 car of John Richards. Richards widely moves way out to the left and lets Guerrero come into pursuit. Followed by Danny Sullivan right behind, and then Emerson Fittipaldi.
Bobby Rahal used that situation of a little bit of traffic fully to his advantage. He did get past in such a way that it left John Richards a little bit in the way, particularly for Danny Sullivan, but you can see at the end of the straight, first gear for Rahal, into second gear, up into third gear, accelerating hard. Now he pops it back into second gear right now, through this left-hander in second, accelerates hard, into third gear now, accelerating up here, into fourth gear, accelerating hard round here. This is a fast part of the racetrack, very fast. Then gets onto the hooks around about here, back into second gear for him. Danny Sullivan moving up to get it towards Guerrero again.
So Danny Sullivan trying to pursue the second place car of Roberto Guerrero. Now we were starting to talk earlier about the potential of fuel problems at this race. Some of the crews say they will be very close. Well, that yellow flag situation certainly slowed them down for a while and may have helped that.
It could do. They say the Chevrolet engine, in fact, doesn't have a fuel problem, but the Ford Cosworth engine may well have a little bit more trouble with going the full distance if they're having to drive them hard all the way. It does seem, however, keep in mind that Bobby Rahal is driving the Lola with the Cosworth engine.
We take a look now, Emerson Fittipaldi, and right behind him, Mario and Michael Andretti, as Mario tries to get around his son and pick up fifth place. And Mario, what a nice pass, set him up and took him.
And look at this, more traffic because it's also being tried from behind. That was the old fox moving there. He knew he couldn't overtake his son on the right-hander, but he positioned himself. Let's look at this again. There's no way that Mario could have got past on the outside here, but he was playing for the next corner. Look, he goes round side by side. He knows his son's not going to chop him off, but look, Mario's right for the left-hander. There's where super intelligence, lots of experience.
Looking in Rahal's pits now, there is no question that Al Unser Jr. also picked up an advantage on that pass because he was able to close right in behind while the two Andrettis were occupied with their fight. Now Mario Andretti closes down on the 4th place car. That's Emerson Fittipaldi, the number 20 machine.
Now this could be very good road racing. A yellow flag is back out, incidentally. There's a yellow flag and a lot of trouble.
Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti both off the course, and it looks like they've hit.
Well, that was that movement that we saw just before we left, because they came together. And Al Unser Jr. was in the left-hand side trying to do an Andretti, but it wasn't to come off.
Well, they got Michael Andretti going, but you can see the right front wheel looks badly cocked on Al Unser's car, so it looks like he may be out, though we'll wait for official confirmation. As at the starting line, once again, multiple yellow flags wave, and the indication that there are emergency vehicles on the course, so once again, that will slow the field. Bobby Rahal is the leader, Roberto Guerrero in 2nd place, Danny Sullivan rides in 3rd, and Mario Andretti continues his battle with Emerson Fittipaldi. We'll be back with more from Toronto. We're back in Toronto under a full course yellow, but in the pits there's some feverish work going on Michael Andretti's car. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, obviously there was some damage on the rear wing of Michael Andretti's car when he came in. It was an unscheduled stop. There had to have been an incident on the course. They have elected to change the entire rear wing assembly. The new wing is now in the process of being installed. They've also taken advantage of the opportunity to change tires. While there's yellow all the way around the course, this is, as you might well anticipate, a very long stop. There was contact. The front of the car appears to be in good shape. Now Michael indicates that he's ready for fire. They want to start it up. Now we hear the engine engage. He should be able to pull away here momentarily. Still trying to get it full up to power. Now it begins to roar into life, and Michael Andretti will hit back on course.
And as they get Michael Andretti's car back into the action, you can see that they have Al Unser Jr.'s car on the hook. He was the other half of that incident on the course that Gary referenced just a moment ago. They got together. Jackie Stewart and I had...
Well, Paul, we mentioned that wing that had been changed. Here's the damaged wing. It's now back in the pits. You can see the damage on this right side panel where it was actually torn away. The screws have come out of this lower paneling here. The change has been made, but obviously it was a critical and a very difficult stop. And remember, Michael Andretti virtually lost any chance to win that race last time he was on NBC at the Meadowlands with a couple of problems in the pits. This time it was on the track. They've made the change. Now they've got a new wing on. Let's go back upstairs to Paul.
Well, Michael Andretti's luck has not been good here at Toronto. He was in an accident here 1 year ago as well. As we watch Bobby Rahal, we saw Mario Andretti trying to move up and challenge with Emerson Fittipaldi once again. We continue to watch the leaders. Canadian television, of course, supplying this feed to us as we watch Bobby Rahal come through, then Guerrero, then Danny Sullivan. There's Emerson Fittipaldi being chased by Mario Andretti.
Yes, this is developing into a real little shuffle between Andretti and Fittipaldi. The last little move they had dropped, put Fittipaldi back, and that, of course, is the battle for 4th and 5th, but you can see there is a gap between Fittipaldi and the cars up front, the 3rd position car, and you can see that this man, Mario Andretti, is definitely after somebody today. He's already executed a wonderful move on his young son, who, of course, was affected by that move, but nevertheless, he's ready now. Let's wait till the end of the straight here. He could easily tuck in underneath, and he could do it right now. Watch for this.
Well, already there through the picture, we're looking at Rick Mears as he tries to come around Tom Sneva. This one really is no contest. The real question is Mario Andretti and his challenge with Emerson Fittipaldi as they continue to watch Tom Sneva being chased by the Pennzoil car of Rick Mears. At the front of the field is Bobby Rahal. Roberto Guerrero lies 2nd. Danny Sullivan is 3rd. 2 battles occurring. That between Fittipaldi and Andretti, and that occurring behind them with Tom Sneva and Rick Mears. That's Derek Daly, the Rayner car, closing in as well.
Fittipaldi still has 4th position, however. You can see that just going out of our picture right now.
Back to Rick Mears. Mears lies 8th in this field as they come across the line to tick off 21 laps for the leader, Bobby Rahal. We have had already 2 full course yellows. Rahal has led right from the pole position, has 91 points in the PPG IndyCar World Series now, 90 coming into this race, and then an additional point scored for his pole position. Rick Mears closing up to challenge Tom Sneva once again. This is the fight for 7th place, and Rick Mears Can he hold it as they come to the next corner? Rick Mears gets around Tom Sneva. This is one of the Penske cars, Chevrolet powered. Remember, the Penske team split this weekend. Danny Sullivan, who currently lies in third, is using an 86 March. And here is Rick Mears running that Penske chassis.
Well, this Penske certainly hasn't proven to be very competitive this year, and I think, in fact, it's a split effort for this team that is to the disadvantage of drivers, mechanics, and team top personnel. A replace again, and here you can see Rick Mears coming up inside Tom Sneva. At the end of this braking, however, Tom Sneva seemed to take an advantage. Now, if he had continued to hold his line there and managed to get the power on at the right point, he could have shouldered Rick Mears out of that left-hand bend, and he would have been correctly positioned for the next left-hand bend, but it was not to be. An experienced road race driver would have done that.
Same corner, same situation as we discussed with Michael and Mario Andretti. Michael attempts on one corner to force the driver to give way and then moves to the inside. In this case, Tom Sneva didn't take advantage of that, and Rick Mears, now in 7th, begins to drive away. So Tom Sneva lies in 8th, Derek Daly is 9th, and Ari Lyondike has moved up into 10th, followed by Jose Lee Garza. Bobby Rahal is our leader here at Toronto. We're back at Toronto's Exhibition Place. The IndyCars challenging here, and everyone trying to catch Bobby Rahal. Roberto Guerrero lies 2nd, followed by Danny Sullivan, Emerson Fittipaldi, and Mario Andretti. At the front of the field, they are running fairly static at the moment. This broadcast being produced under authority granted by championship auto racing teams for the private use of the audience. Any reproduction of this broadcast in any form without the express written permission of championship auto racing teams is expressly prohibited. Bobby Rahal, car number 1. Jackie Stewart already mentioned, he looks almost professorial, a college graduate. But what is Bobby Rahal and family like away from the circuit?
When Bobby Rahal and his wife Debbie aren't traveling the country winning races, they like to unwind here at their Dublin, Ohio home. This is the house that winning last year's PPG championship built. But inside, only a few well-stocked trophy cases attest to Bobby's accomplishments as a driver. Privately, the Rahals are very different from their public image.
Better? Smells wonderful.
Bobby's always playing golf, and I've been enjoying being in the new house and spending a lot of time with Michaela here and getting out riding my horses. And basically, I think for us, we just spend a lot of quiet time at home, nice dinners, lots of friends over, and just enjoying the house that the championship built.
I think the more you travel, the less, it's like you come home, well, let's go out to dinner.
No.
Jeez, I don't want to go out. I've been going out to dinner for the last 6 days.
Let's
eat at home.
People come in and just
let's
barbecue.
Put burgers on the grill or something, have friends over.
Golf is Bobby's other love. He boasts a 12 handicap, despite the fact that he's only been playing a few years. And he built his home just off the 7th fairway of the Muirfield course. Like racing, golf is a challenge to Rahal.
It's very mental. You really have to concentrate, especially when, you're putting for $1.
While Bobby spends many of his private moments in his backyard, Debbie is, many times, just a few miles away at the Columbus Zoo.
Talk to me. Can you say hello?
Without trustees, we don't have a zoo. That's an easy zoo in the country. So people like Debbie hopefully will have a lot of animals like this around for future generations to enjoy.
Last winter, while Bobby was testing, Debbie was with the zoo on a safari in Africa. She spent time in a gorilla colony.
The capability and the chance to be involved with the community, and I think we've been rewarded with so many wonderful things that it's nice to be able to give back to the community.
I think you have an obligation to, if someone asks you for your assistance, that assuming that it's the kind of assistance that you feel right about or correct about, like Easter seals in my case. We're now going to be the chairman for the 3rd year. It started out 1 year ago or 2 years ago for a one-time shot, and now it's up to 3 times. But I think you have an obligation to the community to help out.
And the community, in turn, responds. From Bobby's favorite restaurant to his neighbor's front yard. This 1986 Indianapolis 500 winner is #1 both on and off the track.
back at Toronto's exhibition place. No change in the standings. Bobby Rahal, in fact, still the leader here. He has led this race right from the green flag. Let's go down to the Rahal pits now and Gary Gerould.
Well, Paul, as usual, Debbie Rahal is always right here. She's charting every lap. And, of course, Bobby has led this one wire to wire, as you pointed out. It looks like you guys just continue to be on a terrific roll.
Well, it's exciting. I hope our luck continues. It's kind of scary when, before, as everybody knows, the end of the season is exciting for us, and that's when we do our winning, and we're kind of changing the process this year.
Well, first pit stops are coming up. That's where they won the race at the Meadowlands. We'll see how it goes here in Toronto in just a few moments.
Debbie Rahal keeping track of her husband. He is number one, both in car number and in position, and he has been that way right from the start. Well, Bobby Rahal leads it. Roberto Guerrero runs in second. Danny Sullivan is third. Then Emerson Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, Fabrizio Barbaza, Rick Mears is seventh, Tom Sneva is eighth, Derek Daly ninth, Kevin COGAN lies in 10th.
The Bobby Rahal team, I think, is the big thing here. In motor racing, there has to be an enormous amount of confidence between not only the driver and the designer, but the engineers, and then the mechanics who actually bolt the car together at the racetrack. And it's this kind of confidence that I saw this weekend, and I've been spending a little more time in the Rahal pit this trip than I have in any other previous races this year, and the formula seems right to me as a racer.
Well, Bobby Rahal leads the race while they begin now to work their way past some of the slower cars. Third place is Danny Sullivan. Let's go to his pit and Bruce Jenner.
Thank you, Paul. I'm still camped out down here at the Danny Sullivan pit, and with me is Chuck Sprague, the crew chief. And Chuck, I mentioned in the opening that the decision was made to go with the March, and you have to be very pleased with the performance of your driver and the car.
Oh yeah, it's really been a sensational performance on Danny's part. I think if you look at the car, it's basically the same car we had last year. We've actually been restricted on downforce in terms of the rear wing's been cut down and the body wings have been cut down. We've got an advantage with the Chevrolet in that it's got a better power band for here, but we're really happy with the way this old nail's running.
It certainly does look good. There's a lot of smiles going on down here still, Paul. Keep it going.
Thank you.
All right, Paul.
Danny Sullivan, car number 3, currently rides in third place. Then Emerson Fittipaldi, who is now being chased by Mario Andretti.
Well, Mario had dropped back quite a bit, and it now seems he's been able to catch up a little bit. There was some question about tire temperatures here during the weekend. In Canada, because of the very severe winters, they put a very low coefficient of friction on the road surfaces. You don't have a soft road surface, and that means that the wheels spin more easily. When the wheels spin, they get temperature on them. The driver has to monitor that because a tire is constructed in such a way that you can overheat the tire so that the compound breaks down and doesn't give you quite as much grip as the driver would like to have. And eventually, if the driver abuses that privilege, he will blister the tires. So this is why a driver quite often has to nurse his tires a little bit. Fittipaldi is still slightly out of reach of Andretti.
And of course, that's the mark of the true champion, to try and keep your car running as fast as you can and yet not use the car up. So we watch Emerson Fittipaldi, who runs now in fourth place, being chased by Mario Andretti. We'll be back. We're back in Toronto. Bobby Rahal is the leader of the race. This is Paul Page with Jackie Stewart, Bruce Jenner, and Gary Gerould, and we anticipate pit stops by the leaders any time now. Bobby Rahal's crew has just given the board to him, saying, come on in. Already Rick Mears' crew and Danny Sullivan's crew, the Penske team, have laid out their equipment, anticipating a stop by the leader. Watching Rahal now as he goes past the pits one more time and flashes over the start-finish line, scoring his 35th lap here. Bobby Rahal has led from the green flag, but in the past several road races, these pit stops have been critical. So we watch as Danny Sullivan makes his stop. Let's go to Bruce.
Thank you, Paul. Right now the Penske team is working over the car. They're taking on all 4 tires. Chuck Sprague working on the right front. Capping off the fuel. The fuel is down. Penske with a very important, it has to be a very quick stop for Danny Sullivan. A little bit of trouble getting it into gear, but finally when he got into gear, he's gone and back in the race.
So Danny Sullivan makes it back into the action, making his stop. Rick Mears, his teammate, was stopping just behind him, and the crew is waiting for Bobby Rahal. There's the Mears car making their stop as that Penske performance taking place on that machine. And Rick Mears, the Penske, rolls back into action. Now the leader is still Bobby Rahal. Danny Sullivan surrendered 2 positions when he came into the pits, and we were about to say that it has been critical, these stops. In fact, it has been the critical factor to the victory of Emerson Fittipaldi at Cleveland and to Bobby Rahal. Let's go to the pits and Gary Gerould.
And Bobby Rahal in the first of 2 anticipated stops. It'll be fresh rubber on both sides at the rear, and it'll be fresh rubber on the left front. Let's see if they go for a right front change as well. They have. All the way around, fuel hoses down, and in 15 seconds, a magnificent effort by the Bud crew. It draws a great roar of approval and applause from the spectators in this area, Paul.
So Bobby Rahal comes back into the action, but for the moment, Roberto Guerrero picks up the lead, and Bobby Rahal drops back into 4th place, the first time that he has relinquished the top spot all day.
It's interesting to note, and a yellow flag is showing. That's a problem.
Looks like Garza's car off the edge there.
It looks like they're reversing the car into one of the laybys that they have here on this man-made racetrack round Toronto here to get the car away as an obstruction from the other vehicles. And there Guerrero comes into the pits. Roberto Guerrero coming in.
So Roberto makes his stop, running in the lead at this moment. Gary Gerould is in the pits waiting for that arrival. Let's go to Gary.
Roberto Guerrero is in, Paul. Everything appears to be routine here thus far. He gets the cool drink. Roberto is short-handed with his team this weekend. His wife Katie and son Marco are back in California. Katie attending a high school reunion. The water bottle comes over the wall, then out off the jacks. 17.5 seconds for Roberto Guerrero, who had been running behind Rahal in 2nd place.
So Roberto Guerrero accelerates now, and the lead goes over to Emerson Fittipaldi, who should make a stop as well. And then it will be set for another battle back to the lead, and the key ingredient there, of course, will be Bobby Rahal, who has dropped back to 4th place as a result of the stop under green. The car there, the 71 machine, Arie Luyendyk, as he circles this course, running in 11th place right now, the man from the Netherlands, trying desperately to make his mark in IndyCar racing.
One of the drivers who came over from Formula One racing to try and find fame and fortune in the new world in the United States of America, joining everybody here up in Canada. Luyendyk, he looks like a pop star. He says he would like one day to be a pop star. He would certainly pass, as I say, in looks.
So Emerson Fittipaldi, car number 20, leads at Toronto. Mario Andretti lies in 2nd. Roberto Guerrero is 3rd. Bobby Rahal is 4th. Danny Sullivan lies in 5th. Let's go to Gary Gerould.
Well, Paul, Guerrero has just come back in the pits. We thought it was routine. It was not. No fuel went in the car. They're having a problem again. They're having to back the car up. Now they engage one hose. Now they have the fueling hose in, and this time they'll finally be able to get fuel into the car. So a real problem for the Granatelli racing team. They made what we thought was a routine stop. It was not routine. He got the tires, but he didn't get the fuel. Now he has a full load of fuel, and for the 2nd time, Guerrero is away.
Well, 2 stops for Roberto Guerrero, and very costly. They've dropped him back to 8th position. So Guerrero drops back to 8th while they get that car refueled. Emerson Fittipaldi is the leader. He is being chased by Mario Andretti, and Fittipaldi has, of course, not yet made a stop. You've not seen it. It has not occurred. So Fittipaldi due for a stop almost any time now, and there he is, in fact, on the pit road accelerating, so he's in and out of the pits already, Jackie.
Well, the costly stop, the 2nd stop by Guerrero, I'm afraid, will be a question of more or less putting him out of contention for this race. This, for a driver, is an enormously disappointing thing, and I'm afraid it's down to the team. It might be that we can find out what that story is, but that sort of error should never occur.
So Emerson Fittipaldi, at the moment the leader, but Bobby Rahal is now moving his way back up through the field and is still the man to watch. We'll be back. We're back in Toronto with 44 laps complete. We've had 3 leaders, Roberto Guerrero, Bobby Rahal, and now Emerson Fittipaldi. Rahal led to the first pit stop, then Guerrero took over, then Fittipaldi, this number 20 car, took over. Among those prominent out of the race, Al Unser Jr., contact with Michael Andretti, though Michael Andretti is still running. He is in 13th place. Johnny Rutherford out of the race, as is Dick Simon. Ludwig Heimrath Jr., our camera car, out of the event. Jeff McPherson, Jeff BRABHAM, and Dale Coyne, all now spectators here in Toronto.
Emerson Fittipaldi looking for a back-to-back win because he did win in Cleveland. He's certainly hot at the present time, and he's driving in a manner at the present time that would look that he's fit for another victory, having a little trouble with the traffic. Bobby Rahal not making the impression upon him that I expected Bobby to make. Slipping in the inside there, that was a neat move.
And so the backmarker traffic now becoming yet again a factor. And Mario Andretti pulls to the side of the race course. Apparently out of the race, that's behind the racing wall. Mario Andretti has pulled on.
Well, that's a mechanical problem for him. It might be at the end of the straight. I'm trying to identify where this could be, but he certainly pulled way off. There it is. It is at the end of the straight. He just went straight on. It looked to me like it was a great failure to begin with, but I don't think so. Mario had no opportunity to do very much.
No, the car stopped properly.
He's still sitting in the car. He's taking off his seat belts. He's closing the office for the day. That's him undoing his information, his radio information linked to the pits.
He started this race in 5th. He was 5th at the time that he drove the car off the course. So that machine by the wayside, and Mario Andretti no longer a factor. At the same time, look here, Derek Daly, the number 10 machine, a man who did very well with the 3rd place finish on the oval at Milwaukee, again coming from Formula One and hoping to do well here. And Derek Daly walking away from his car now. So 2 major changes. Derek Daly was running 14th at the time he pulled off. This man, car number 20, Emerson Fittipaldi, leads the race, and just behind him you can see Bobby Rahal.
Bobby Rahal has been in contention throughout this entire weekend. Don't believe that he's out of it yet. He's still there.
In the meantime now, let's go down to Mario Andretti's pit and Gary Gerould.
Paul, just before Mario actually pulled off the course, we had received a report that they were having an engine problem. We don't know exactly what type of problem or specifically what ends up putting him out of the race. But as you can see now, all of Mario's crew already, the headsets and the helmets have come off. They start packing up. And this roller coaster season for Mario Andretti that started so impressively with a victory in the streets of Long Beach has taken another downward spiral, unfortunately, here in Toronto.
So with Mario Andretti no longer a threat, Emerson Fittipaldi has to hold off Bobby Rahal. Now Fittipaldi in that Chevrolet-powered March machine was the winner 2 weeks ago at Cleveland. He'd like to see them back-to-back here. Rahal in his Cosworth-powered machine. Now they say that the leading car here, that of Fittipaldi's in that Chevrolet power, gives him more power to come off the turn to accelerate better with. Additionally, Jackie Stewart, on his last pit stop, Fittipaldi decided to change all 4 tires. The combination giving him an advantage now?
Well, they say the Chevrolet picks up better. It's got a slightly better engine response, particularly on the slower corners. That would certainly help him. And then they say also, of course, the fact that he took these 4 tires, and he went very wide in that corner, incidentally. He misjudged his braking distance there, and he was right out of the groove. And look how Bobby Rahal's taken advantage of that. Something's happened to Fittipaldi, and of course, when a race driver makes a mistake, it's a rhythm factor that gets interrupted, and it's quite difficult for a race driver to get back into the groove again. If Rahal can take advantage of him right now, this could be a lead change.
Well, you can see by the way he's driving, Rahal certainly senses that. Perhaps he senses more. He can hear and see things we can't. He can watch the movement of suspension. He can see the gear shift moving at the back of the transaxle there. So perhaps Rahal now senses that in a moment he will own that number 1 position once again as he chases Emerson Fittipaldi into the first turn here and past the Princess Gate.
Well, I think he's left it too late. If he was going to upset Fittipaldi's balance, he should have done it within 2 or 3 corners. I don't think he's going to be able to do it now, and if Fittipaldi's the man I think he is, he should be able to get his brain back into gear and have his rhythm and his timing back up to scratch. The fact that he did change 4 wheels and tires, incidentally, in his pit stop is logical to me. If you're going to come in for tires in any case, don't just take 2 on. Take 4 fresh, cold, new tires. It'll give you a slight handling advantage.
Well, now the leaders begin to encounter the 8th place machine of Tom Sneva, that green number 33 car. And that could become a factor here in just a moment as Fittipaldi closes in behind. Sneva certainly a veteran road racer as well. He's done very well on the road racing circuits, though most people think of him as a short track oval racer. racer. But look at this, Bobby Rahal trying to pick up the advantage. They both come in behind Sneva, but Bobby Rahal can't get it done. Still, he's right there, ready to attack.
Now, this is the place he can do it. He can draft going along here because Sneva's air is going to give Fittipaldi a lift, but he's got to pass on the right-hand side of the racetrack. Here he goes. He's tried it. Fittipaldi's come across. He's not going to be able to do it this time. Sneva, I wonder if he's fully aware. No, he's not fully aware that Rahal was behind him. Now, that is an intelligent move by Rahal. If he had gone inside Sneva, it's possible Sneva might not have seen him, and that could have caused another incident.
Very smart player, but now Rahal is past Sneva. Sneva, with 15 years of experience, knew the leaders were there and just drove the most normal line he could to let everyone else get past. So Bobby Rahal now closes up again and renews his pursuit of Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi is the leader, Rahal second. Danny Sullivan, we've not seen him for a while, but he lies back in third place. Kevin COGAN is fourth. Rick Mears lies in fifth. Roberto Guerrero, with those 2 pit stops, has dropped all the way back into sixth place. And Fabrizio Barbaza lies in seventh. Now look at Rahal as he tries it again. Tries to get wide and can't get it done.
Well, I didn't particularly enjoy the move of Emerson Fittipaldi there. I don't approve of using the racetrack in a fashion such as this to block another driver. That is not the line that Emerson Fittipaldi would have used, and he's trying the same tactics here, going down the straight stretch on the right-hand side of the racetrack. Now, back in Europe, in Grand Prix racing, that would be frowned upon, and in my day, in fact, probably the Grand Prix Drivers Association would have taken disciplinary action on a driver for doing that. Although it may seem anything's fair in love or war, it's not, in my opinion, correct to use the racetrack in that fashion.
So Rahal tried to close on Emerson Fittipaldi, did so in the first turn, did so again at the hairpin, could not get the job done in either place, but still, he stays right at the back of the car. I would think, Jackie Stewart, that Bobby Rahal is just slightly faster than Fittipaldi, and Fittipaldi knows it and is trying to keep him pushed to the outside lines.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. If Fittipaldi gets past here, Rahal will draw away from him, but he won't do it continuously using this unorthodox line, because when you do not enter a corner correctly, you do not exit a corner correctly. Now, he is being drafted here. Look, but there he goes. Rahal's going up the inside. Can Fittipaldi? No, he's not going to be outbraked, Fittipaldi. He's got a lot of experience in road racing and going into tight corners.
All right, so Bobby Rahal tried the inside, tried the outside, and still could not get past Emerson Fittipaldi. We'll be back. This is Paul Page with Jackie Stewart. We are back in Toronto, watching Emerson Fittipaldi and Bobby Rahal work their way around the 7th place car of Fabrizio Barbaza. They're averaging over 103 miles an hour on one very tight and twisty circuit here at the exhibition place. And Emerson Fittipaldi has been watching his mirrors fill up with Rahal lap after lap as he tries to keep Rahal back.
He's been doing a very business-like job of doing it. It does seem that the Chevrolet engine just has that little, and look at the wife and family and pit crew really pointing towards the Fittipaldi-Rahal battle there. And that's Kevin COGAN, who's in the pits. Kevin COGAN's car ready to go out. It looks like he may have stalled his engine.
They're trying to restart the car. This is a routine stop. Kevin COGAN made his pit stop out of order on the second full course yellow. So this is really a routine stop, except for the fact he killed his motor. Back to his teammate, Emerson Fittipaldi. Bobby Rahal sitting right there. And just behind them is Fabrizio Barbaza. He is currently running in the 6th position now. And the concern here on the circuit is one of tires now. There was a question yesterday. Would the tires, a much softer compound than last year, go the distance here? Let's get an update on that. Here's Gary Gerald.
Paul, a year ago in this event here in Toronto, tire wear became a very significant problem on this temporary circuit the first time they'd raced. Several cars had blistering problems, so that's been a concern this weekend. But Goodyear has come up with a brand new compound. As you mentioned, it's extremely soft. In fact, Goodyear engineers have told us it is the softest compound used now on the IndyCar PPG World Series circuit. This has been designed to help dissipate heat buildup much more effectively than the tire that they used a year ago. And as Jackie was talking about earlier, on this particular course, because it's so smooth, at these speeds, you get a little slippage and sliding, and it's easy to get the extra wheel spin that creates tire wear. These 3 tires came off Emerson Fittipaldi's car earlier on his pit stop. The tire wear has been magnificent. No particular problem thus far for this team or other teams, Paul.
So it appears that the Goodyear tire engineers made the right choice, at least for this circuit, the softer compound working. The temperatures here, that was very hot the 2 practice days. Of course, we're right on the lakefront, and a breeze, almost a wind, blows across this circuit. In fact, catches the cars head on as they head down toward the Princess Gate into the first turn. As we watch Emerson Fittipaldi, and you can see that Rahal has now pulled back a bit and lies off the back end of Fittipaldi.
Well, Fittipaldi now trying to build up a little bit of a cushion of a lead. Whether he can afford to do that or not with Rahal, I'm not quite sure how hard Rahal's driving right now, and there is still some speculation whether there's going to be a 3 pit stop race here or a 2 pit stop race. That is going to be a major issue, and as of course Emerson Fittipaldi knows from his last victory in Cleveland, a pit stop can bring victory, or of course it can rob you from victory. So Rahal, I think, is driving a little more conservatively on the road, perhaps conserving his tires, rather than Fittipaldi, who seems to be driving just a little bit more aggressively. On the other hand, he's got a bit of space now, Paul.
You can see that Bobby Rahal for a bit there dropped way back, now closes up just a bit. Let's go down to the Roger Penske pits. The question is fuel consumption. Perhaps some of the answers come from Bruce Jenner.
Thank you, Paul. And yes, fuel was a concern at the start of this race, but I just talked to Chuck Sprague right over my shoulder, and he said that fuel really is not going to be a problem because of all the yellows. And before that first fuel stop, they had these long yellows, and during those yellows, they can conserve fuel. So he doesn't think that that's a problem. So he's giving Danny Sullivan sort of the thumbs up to drive hard. He was 13 seconds behind the first and second place cars. Now he's just right behind them. So he's pushing it pretty hard, and fuel doesn't seem to be a main concern down here. Paul?
Number 20, Emerson Fittipaldi, is still the leader. Bobby Rahal is second. The third place car, Bruce Jenner just mentioned it, is Danny Sullivan, while his teammate Rick Mears in a very credible 4th place. We'll be back with more from Toronto right after this. This is Paul Page with Jackie Stewart. We are back in Toronto, and Randy Lewis just ricocheted off the wall. You can see the left rear on that car as it wobbles about, and Lewis tries to bring that car back to the pits, and the expert service of A.J. Watson and his 27 years of experience as a crew chief to try and get that car back into the action.
Well, we can see here a situation that developed, and here another pass here by Rick Mears as he comes through in slow motion. You can see that, but it's this we're looking for. Randy Lewis.
Randy Lewis, car number 24. They would really like to get the car back into action because Lewis was running in 9th place. Now, a few moments ago, this was the situation. Watch the car in the center of your screen, the 59 machine of Rick Moskiewicz, as he locks the brakes too hard, brushes the car in front of him, bends the front wing, and fights to keep that machine under control as he comes off of the corner.
Well, that's a typical road racing accident, I'm afraid, and this is a race for the lead right now. Bobby Rahal again trying to find a way through. Mario Andretti's son Michael moves right over, a gentlemanly move to let the first and second drivers through, almost drove out of the way to achieve that, but look how close Rahal is once again to Emerson Fittipaldi.
Well, Michael Andretti not in the fight. He is running 9th, but this definitely is the battle on the circuit as Bobby Rahal still trying desperately to chase down Emerson Fittipaldi, that number 20 machine. Yellow flag flies at that corner. That's looks like the Lewis machine finally has been abandoned at the side of the circuit. And so that yellow flag stands only in that section of the track. We have had 2 full course yellows, but for the most part, obviously in road racing, you try to stay with a yellow flag only in that section of the circuit. Here comes Rahal. He pulls wide. More of a threat than any reality.
Yes, but Emerson again is using the wrong line to go around this corner. I don't approve of that move at all. I'm afraid I disapprove of that. It's neither gentlemanly racing, and a lot of aficionados might say, hey, Jackie, this is hardcore racing. You can't play gentleman in this. But there is a code of behavior. There are manners to be lived with.
On the other hand, many of the rules would say that the road belongs to the leader and he can use it in any way he sees fit. Well, that's certainly what Emerson Fittipaldi is doing at the moment.
You can do that, but I never raced against anybody who was really good, a Jim Clark or anybody, even people like Dan Gurney drove in a different fashion. I'm still, I'm afraid, one of the old school when it comes to etiquette and behavior.
So Bobby Rahal probably shares your opinion at the moment, Jackie Stewart, as he would love to chase down Fittipaldi and get past him. On the other hand, Fittipaldi is looking for his second IndyCar win of this season. It would be his fourth IndyCar win. He won at the Michigan 500. He won at Elkhart Lake. And then just 2 weeks ago on the Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland. And Danny Sullivan, third place pits. Let's go to Bruce Jenner.
Thank you, Paul. Danny Sullivan is in the pits a little bit early for the lead pack. The other guys are still out there as he tears his visors off, tries to get a nice clean look. The reason he's coming in a little bit early is because his fuel light has been on for about the last 20 laps. So as they said, they're sort of running blind out there. They didn't know exactly what the fuel situation was. So they came in a few laps early just to make sure they were going to be okay, and he's back in the action.
Danny Sullivan laid down a couple of massive patches as he left the Penske pit there, and there is the fight for the lead, as Bobby Rahal still chases Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's go up the pits to Gary Gerould.
Well, Paul, here at the head of the pits, they've been working for some time on Rick Niskiewicz' car, but the story is all the water that's out on the racetrack. Water had been poured out here around this car. They've been trying to sweep it, but every car that comes into the pits picks up a rooster tail. It's only 3 pits away from Emerson Fittipaldi, 5 pits from Bobby Rahal. If they have to come in, and as they're slowing down, it could be just a treacherous little piece of terrain to cross. We'll wait and see. Meanwhile, they hope to get it swept up and dried out, Paul.
So we watch Rick Niskiewicz. There's Rick Mears. He is coming back to action. He just made a stop. The Penske team decided to shift their cars, service first Sullivan, and then service Rick Mears. So Rick Mears, who is running in 5th place, is back into the action. Both Sullivan and Mears having completed what should be their final stop of the race. But what Gary Gerould says is very true. The water that you saw was spread all across the pit lane, not actually out onto the race track proper, but the pit lane is part of the race course, and when they come through there, they come through very hot, and if the 2 leaders come in together, that could be a problem. We watch Rick Mears. That is the Penske car, and 2 cars. That's Barbaza nearest to us. Both of them spinning around, neither one apparently touching one another. Barbaza was running in 6th, and both cars get rolling once again. So Fabrizio Barbaza, who spun and still did rather well at Indianapolis, has spun again and is now back in pursuit. The leader is still Emerson Fittipaldi, and the man that would like him is Bobby Rahal. There is that fight. The fight for the lead, the 20-car Fittipaldi, the bright red #1 machine of Bobby Rahal.
Again, it's a stalking matter. It's a question of Bobby Rahal trying to use his intelligence to get in strategically at the right moment to get Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi is not falling asleep, however. It's a question of him, as he has done, using the racetrack to his advantage, and he certainly has done so to ensure that Bobby Rahal has not been able to pass because he's been in a position to pass. This race may well turn out to be a battle of the pit stops as Rahal comes in.
Bobby Rahal making his stop now. Bobby Rahal was collecting data. There he goes through the water.
And he's overshot. He's overshot. He's overshot on the water. That's exactly what happened. And that's what the problem is. Now, there's a big disadvantage that is very unfair, and Bobby Rahal probably will lose this race over the head of it. Now, Fittipaldi will be told on his radio, I suspect, to be careful of that same water. Bobby came in not knowing the water was there, perhaps had not been told. I don't know, but very difficult for him to judge. A real big drama and potentially the loss of the race.
Well, we can't see that area. Perhaps Gary Gerould can, so it's difficult for us to say whether or not a yellow flag might have been posted in the pits at that point. Gary Gerould, are you there?
Paul, it's interesting. We just had a word with Pat Patrick, and he was furious. He said, that water may cost us the race. Moments later, Rahal comes in, tried to lock the brakes up. You saw the smoke off the tire after he couldn't get slowed down, had to bypass his pit and go around. Now, Emerson will be coming in. Here's Roberto Guerrero going biased to a pit, and the drivers coming through here with caution now, as they have been radioed to take care coming onto pit lane.
And here comes Bobby Rahal toward you once again as Roberto Guerrero makes his stop. Guerrero's car being refueled. Let's go to Bruce Jenner.
Bobby Rahal finally makes it into the pits. You can see he's a little bit disgusted with what exactly happened. He's grabbing for his water as they put, looks like they're just going to go with the 3 tires as of right now. They're trying to make this as fast a pit stop as they possibly can. The fuel is still going in. It's just about capped off. It is capped off. Rahal puts it into gear, smokes it, and obviously he's very upset with what just happened. That's a second pit stop he's had to make in 2 laps. Paul?
So So there's Bobby Rahal back to the action. Roberto Guerrero stopped as well. We wait for Emerson Fittipaldi. You got a brief glimpse of Teresa Fittipaldi. As in the Patrick pits, they worry about when Emerson comes in, will he really realize that there is a very serious problem there?
Well, it seemed to me that Bobby had a few problems when he came in there. You could see his blood pressure was up, the pulse rate was racing. He took the bottle, he wanted a drink, he didn't get it into his mouth correctly. And there's Gary down in the pits, Fittipaldi.
Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, Emerson also locked up his right front, actually skidded and threw up some smoke when he came out of the water, but everything else appears to be routine. It's 3-tire change, down off the jack in under 14 seconds. Jubilation for the Patrick Racing pit as they go for 2 in a row.
Number 20, Emerson Fittipaldi comes out. There is Roberto Guerrero, the 4th place car alongside, and Fittipaldi goes in and out without giving up that lead. So Emerson Fittipaldi is still leading here in Toronto. This was the problem, the water here in the pits. It worked for Emerson Fittipaldi. It was a serious problem for Bobby Rahal. We're back in Toronto where Emerson Fittipaldi is still our leader, and he has led a majority of the laps now and picked up a point for that in the PPG IndyCar World Series. Bobby Rahal is trying to hold off Danny Sullivan now in 2nd place. These cars out of the race so far, it has been an event that has been very hard on some of the Indianapolis cars, and some of the prominent names, of course, Johnny Rutherford there, Mario Andretti, Derek Daly, Kevin COGAN, all started this race up at the front. Emerson Fittipaldi, the number 20 car, is our leader at the moment, and he has about a 10-second advantage over the 2nd place car of Bobby Rahal, who is then being pursued by Danny Sullivan. Roberto Guerrero sits just in front of Emerson Fittipaldi. Guerrero is in 4th place right now, and Fittipaldi, of course, would like to put Guerrero 1 lap down. So Emerson Fittipaldi in car number 20, who started this race back in the 3rd starting position, was able to, through pit stops and through some good maneuvers, get up to the front of the race. Fittipaldi, former world champion, who really likes driving these streets.
I enjoy a lot driving Toronto. I mean, it's really a beautiful track because on the back part you have a very slow section, 2nd gear, 1st gear corners that similar to the Meadowlands, some of the corners. And then you have this fast corner before the S's. And then you have a quite long back straight with a long braking area. I think that's nice to have a long braking area because that's a place where you can pass people. When you're dicing someone, if you're a little faster, you still can go there on the inside line. And I think that counts a lot.
And Emerson Fittipaldi, who enjoys these streets and averages 102 miles an hour as he works his way through them. We'll be back with more from Toronto in a moment. We're back in Toronto as Rick Mears moves around Roberto Guerrero and picks up 4th place. Mears, whose car has not been the best handling on this circuit and whose best finish this year has been 3rd, now on this road course, gets around Roberto Guerrero and picks up 1 more position. Now, the leader, Emerson Fittipaldi, is just ahead of these 2 cars, and just behind is a battle between Danny Sullivan and Bobby Rahal. Rahal currently occupies 2nd.
Well, in the replay here, it does seem to me that something happened to Guerrero because he was just seeming to almost be asleep, because really Mears passed him too comfortably, and that was not something that I expected from Roberto Guerrero at this time. And it does seem that Rick Mears can now pull away comfortably from Guerrero, so I would suggest that there's a mild mechanical happening going on in Roberto Guerrero's car.
So Rick Mears now rides in 4th place, and he's being chased by the 5th place car of Roberto Guerrero, who was one of the leaders in this race. As we look again at our detailed summary, 82 laps are complete. We've had 3 leaders. Guerrero has been 1, Rahal another, and Emerson Fittipaldi is our current leader. 11 cars are out of this race, so the attrition rate has been very high here of the 24 that started. As we watch Rick Mears, that Pennzoil machine, it is a Penske PC-16, the car that the Penske stable is trying to develop for this season, but for their teammate, they decided last year's March was more appropriate. They gave the last year march to Danny Sullivan. They told Rick Mears, you can have the older car when we come to the Michigan 500. Well, Sullivan's doing very well with it at the moment. Sullivan runs in third place. There's the second place car, and that is Bobby Rahal. And he's now closing down behind Roberto Guerrero as he attempts to lap him. This car is the leader. That's Emerson Fittipaldi.
Emerson Fittipaldi certainly has done a very good job. He's also been awakened to the fact that Bobby Rahal was making a bit of a charge on him. Rahal got to about 6.25 seconds. He's opened up the gap now, Fittipaldi, to 7.31 seconds. So it does seem that he is in control. I have been critical about the way he's used the race car, but on the other hand, he's been able to use this track to his best advantage, and if he's going to win the race, well, we've got to applaud him for that.
All right, so Emerson Fittipaldi now closing up behind Michael Andretti, who runs 8th. Let's go to Bruce Jenner, who is with Steve Horn.
Thank you, Paul. And Steve, when Bobby came in, you obviously got on the headset and told him about the water, so he was warned, wasn't he?
Well, we told him about the water. Maybe we told him a little bit too late, but I don't think he realized how much water was there, and we overshot the pit, but that's the way it goes. I think we can make it up here.
I was going to say, you started off probably about 12 seconds behind. You've got it now between 6 and 7 seconds behind the leader. So with almost 20 laps to go, this is still a lot of racing.
Well, it's one thing to catch up, but it's another thing to pass. I think we can get up to him. Whether we can get by him, that's another thing.
All right. Well, good luck to you guys. Paul?
Okay, Bruce Jenner, Steve Horn. There's Rick Mears off of the course at station number 6. Apparently that engine let going just after that wonderful little fight with Roberto Guerrero. So Rick Mears is out of action as they pull his car to safety behind the wall. Emerson Fittipaldi is the leader. I was about to say Steve Horn is the president and the team manager for True Sports, Bobby Rahal's team. While Fittipaldi, the track record holder here, continues to lead. Let's go down to Gary Gerould.
Oh, the skies have darkened. I personally don't think it's going to rain before this race is over, but nonetheless, Gary Robazzini, the entire team down here with Emerson Fittipaldi is prepared. The rain tires are no more than about 6 or 7 feet from the wall. They've all been checked out. They're ready to go on the car instantly if they're needed. Emerson Fittipaldi, of course, going for 2 in a row. That's something, a luxury the Pat Patrick Racing team hasn't enjoyed in a long, long time.
Well, Gary, indeed, the sky overhead as we look across the skyline of downtown Toronto and the CN Tower, the largest structure in North America. Some blue sky there, but directly over the track here, it has darkened up. It is the darkest it has been all day. Emerson Fittipaldi leads this race. He, by the way, is the 1-lap track record holder as they come past the yellow flags that are out for where they put water down on Rick Mears' car, trying to get the track cleaned off there, and safety vehicles out in that area. That's turn 1, which is a key passing area. So Emerson Fittipaldi, the track record holder here, set a year ago in qualifying at 60.3 seconds or 106 miles an hour. He knows how to get around here very, very quickly, and his record has not yet been broken this year. So Fittipaldi leads the race, and he is the track record holder. Second place is Rahal. Third place, Danny Sullivan. Guerrero is in 5th, and in 4th place and 5th place is now Tom Sneva. We'll be back with more. This is Paul Page with Jackie Stewart, Bruce Jenner, and Gary Gerould, and we are back in Toronto as Danny Sullivan is trying to chase down the second-place car of Bobby Rahal. Sullivan closed up right behind. That's Tom Sneva. He's currently running in 5th and a lap down just behind there. But Sullivan, as they head down the pit straight and for the first turn, is trying desperately to play catch-up. He has had his nose tucked right under Rahal's wing several times in the past few seconds.
Well, it's been a case of, I think, Bobby Rahal going a little bit slower off the pace than he should be, because it seems to me that Danny Sullivan has just swallowed him up, and it looks like he could do him at the end of the straight under braking. Watch for this. He'll slingshot him in the inside. He'll try to outbrake him. He'll do him. He's done him. He's done him. He's got through. Now, that was a classic move that could have been read by a blind man, because it was coming up from a long time back. He exited the corner before it well, and I think that Bobby Rahal's got a wee problem in his car because he was swallowed up too quickly.
Danny Sullivan had been watching for just that opening, and then on the approach to the hairpin, which was really a pretty gutsy attack because there was oil laid down when Rick Mears' engine let go. There's Danny Sullivan. You can see a wing vortex coming off the back of that wing. It's so humid here.
Well, he made the press clearly. Now, this is where the track has been wetted down just as the exit here. Danny Sullivan stayed inside as the other driver, Bobby Rahal, did also, so it was a clean track where he was driving on. But it does seem to me, look, Bobby's dropped right back now, and even Tom Sneva's giving him a little pressure.
So Danny Sullivan comes around Bobby Rahal, picks up second place. Rahal back to third. Roberto Guerrero rides in fourth, and this man, Emerson Fittipaldi, is the leader. Car number 20. He is about 9 seconds out in front of the now second place Danny Sullivan. Let's go to the pits. Gary Gerald.
Well, nervously trying to protect that 9-second lead, the owner of the Emerson Fittipaldi's car, Pat Patrick. Pat, it's been a long time since you've had the luxury of possibly back-to-back victories. Your thoughts right now?
Well, my thoughts now, we just hope that the car, oh, there's a fork, there's a yellow. We hope that the car holds together. He's running so well. The Chevrolet engine obviously gives us an advantage, as you can see by the torque we're getting out of turn. We're very pleased.
I know you were concerned for that last pit stop because of the water. The water ended up making Rahal a victim, and Emerson got through okay.
Well, we talked to Emerson on the radio and told him to watch it. I wanted to see Rahal pit first to see what would happen. He had to come in a lap before we did, and you saw what happened. I was very concerned about it. That may have helped us win the race.
All right, Pat, thank you very much. Let's check in now with Bruce Jenner.
Thank you, Gary. I'm down here in the Bobby Rahal pit. And the reason Bobby Rahal has sort of gone off the pace a little bit, you notice Danny Sullivan got him under braking because Rahal's brakes seems to have just sort of weakened a little bit, got a little bit too hot, cooked the brakes, and they don't seem to be forming up too well. And Steve Horn right behind me has had a chance to talk. And Steve, it seems like the brakes have gone on Bobby's car.
Yeah, he's having a lot of problem with the brakes now. I think we're probably really down on the pads, so we're just going to look for the points.
All right, so you take those third-place points at this point.
Yeah, I just hope maybe Danny can catch Emerson.
All right, thank you very much. Paul?
So Emerson Fittipaldi goes for the lead. Bobby Rahal's crew say that they stay in simply for the points now, with 94 of the 103 laps scheduled complete for Emerson Fittipaldi. Sullivan rides second. Rahal with an ailing car rides in third. Roberto Guerrero, whose crew has been radioing him back and forth saying, we've given you all the fuel you have. So maybe there's an additional problem there with Roberto Guerrero. They could run out of fuel before the end of this race. So Emerson Fittipaldi, car number 20, there he is. He won at Cleveland, and he has won 2 other IndyCar races, the Michigan 500 and at Elkhart last year. So Emerson Fittipaldi looking now for his 4th IndyCar victory. Fittipaldi out in front, running very smooth, about 7.5 seconds ahead of Danny Sullivan, who just took over second place from Bobby Rahal.
And he hasn't eased off. I could see him squirting the power on, the back end kicking out into a little bit of oversteer as he accelerated out of that last third gear corner. He hasn't gone to sleep on the job. He's certainly still keeping the pace up. Fittipaldi, I think, is of course a master at going faster. I raced against him many times. He was twice world champion, and we were great racers together. He was always a good man to race against, a fair man to race against. Bobby Rahal today in our picture just getting on the brakes a little bit too much. If he's worn his pads out, he surely has been getting on to the hooks a little heavier. Some race drivers use more brakes than others. It's a question of the application of the brakes to try and save them as much as possible. And the heavy braking coming into where he is coming into now is what puts the brake temperatures right up and, of course, creates this brake wear.
So Bobby Rahal works his way through the hairpin with Tom Sneva just behind. Rahal sits in third. Sneva is off of the pace, running in 5th right now, but a good position for Tom Sneva on a road course, who has surprised many, being really a short course driver with his laps. As a tire rolling down the track, flags are out in front of it. Tire, everybody gets by, and it came off of this car, Michael Andretti. Michael was running 7th and lost the left front.
Yep, it's a front tire. He came off. It's amazing. And look how
it
well it's behaved.
Safely.
It's a well-behaved tire. And look where he was. He was getting to a position where he could come into the pits. These cars drive remarkably well on 3 wheels. They're very well balanced. He'll bring it in there. There may be no damage to that front rotor, as you call it, or disc, as we call it. They're just plugging another tire in. I mean, it's normal daily progress, isn't it? One comes off, one goes on.
So a double dose of luck for Michael Andretti. First, that he was so close to the pits, able to keep the car under control and drive it in. And second, that wheel, look at it, rolling down the track there. Corner worker wisely getting a warning flag out, though the flag is really for a vehicle on the course, and I guess that's what it was.
It was a slow-moving tire.
And the tire well behaved, as you said, Jackie Stewart, staying over to the left side of the course and no contact with anyone else. 100 laps now complete for Emerson Fittipaldi. 3 to go here. And Emerson Fittipaldi, if he can only hold on, will win at Toronto. The question still might be one of fuel. The Chevrolet engine is said to be a little better with fuel. Roberto Guerrero, you know, we had a report, was running out of fuel. There's Guerrero just in front of Fittipaldi and running in 4th. But there still is a question, even with 2 full-course yellows, will Fittipaldi make it all the way to the end of this race?
Well, of course, the Chevrolet engine is a newer engine. It's a later development engine than the Cosworth, and there Guerrero moves over to let Fittipaldi through. Well known to each other. They raced against each other in the Grand Prix racetracks of the world, and now, of course, they're both over here. For Emerson Fittipaldi, it's a sort of born-again racing driver because he had run the gauntlet in Formula One, not very competitive at the end of his career, retired, and there's the family Fittipaldi there, terribly excited, crossing fingers. My wife, I remember when I was racing, was terribly nervous towards the end and never wanted anyone to interrupt her, never wanted anyone to speak to her until that checkered flag had dropped. But Emerson, of course, knows the combination to open that door of success. He's done it so many times. It is a key, and once you learn how to operate that key, you can repeat it. So this could be a big interest factor in the future of kart racing if Fittipaldi and the Patrick team can keep it together with this Chevrolet engine. And there's still a lot of development still to be done in that, as Danny Sullivan must surely be pleasing Roger Penske's team.
Danny Sullivan riding in 2nd place as Emerson Fittipaldi sees the white flag. So does Danny Sullivan. 1 lap left to go. Sullivan closing down, came across the line just 3.2 seconds behind Emerson Fittipaldi. Now that long straightaway with a mild bend in it as Fittipaldi has some slower cars just in front of him, weaves the car back and forth. Fuel probably still a concern on board here. He comes to the inside as the 3 stack up in front of him, and Emerson Fittipaldi knows this is costing time. Sullivan is on the charge. There is Sullivan right behind Fittipaldi now. Now, can Fittipaldi work his way through this? Look at Sullivan coming in here. Sullivan coming right up behind Emerson Fittipaldi.
Well, Fittipaldi could not pass because there was a yellow out. It looks like Tom Sneever's car was being pulled off the racetrack, and for that matter, that then gave the opportunity of Danny Sullivan to come right up into him, and look where he is right now. Now, it's a question of who can do what.
So Danny Sullivan tries. Emerson Fittipaldi comes to the inside. They hit. Sullivan spins. Will Fittipaldi stop on the course? Fittipaldi keeps going. Sullivan keeps going. Both cars touch the yellow flag out. Emerson Fittipaldi screams for the start-finish line, and Emerson Fittipaldi has won here. But in the last corner of the last lap, as Danny Sullivan tried to the inside, he tapped. Look at the Penske team. There is the sign of victory as they celebrate in the Patrick pits. Danny Sullivan tried with everything he had. The result was contact with Fittipaldi, and fortunately, the contact did not put Fittipaldi out. It did not put Danny Sullivan out. Danny Sullivan came across the line 8 seconds behind Emerson Fittipaldi in 2nd place.
Well, that was really a fraction of a second, and let's watch it again. You see Danny Sullivan coming up on the right-hand side of your picture right now. He tries to get in. Emerson's not going to let him in. And what happens? They come in contact. The front right-hand wheel of Danny Sullivan's car hits the rear left of Fittipaldi's. Fittipaldi corrects it with applying opposite lock. In the meantime, Danny had been shoved into the right-hand side of the racetrack, of the left-hand side of the track as we were to see it. There, it's a question of both of those drivers drawing alongside each other, acknowledging that they're both okay, and that Emerson Fittipaldi certainly is the winner. And the reason that Danny Sullivan got that close to him was because of a yellow flag where he was not allowed to pass the slower cars at the end of the straight. Otherwise, that gap would not have been tightened up, and that little contretemps might never have occurred.
So Emerson Fittipaldi, with this action on the last lap, Danny Sullivan tried to the inside. Fittipaldi made the turn in. Sullivan tapped Fittipaldi. Sullivan spun. Fittipaldi went wide. Both cars continued and finished 1st and 2nd at Toronto. An incredible finish. Emerson Fittipaldi thought he had it going away, and then in the final lap, it was Danny Sullivan that came in on the charge. But still, Emerson Fittipaldi held on for that victory. So the Patrick Racing Team and Fittipaldi with 2 in a row, and a 3rd victory of the season for the Chevrolet Racing engine. Mario Illy, Paul Morgan going to be very, very happy with the progress of that newly developed engine. And you can see there's George Huning saying to M.O., 2 in a row, pal. You've done it again. George Huning, one of the crew chiefs on these machines. And they try to get Emerson Fittipaldi unbuckled and out of that car. with 2 in a row, this should be a more familiar process now. Gary Gerould waits by, and in just a moment, we're going to be talking with our new winner here at Toronto, Emerson Fittipaldi. But what a fantastic last lap that was, as Fittipaldi, seeing Danny Sullivan close up behind him, and Sullivan charged down right behind Fittipaldi, tapped him in one of the final turns. It sent Sullivan spinning. It sent Emerson Fittipaldi very wide on the circuit. And look, that's one very exhausted man. He's hot, he's perspiring, but he's smiling.
Incidentally, he cut his finger very badly about 3 days ago, and that could have caused him great discomfort.
So Emerson Fittipaldi wins. Let's go to Gary Gerould.
Well, a congratulatory hug from members of the crew, from Pat Patrick. Here's Emerson Fittipaldi with 2 in a row. Emo, let's go back to this last lap in the drama. When Danny Sullivan in traffic tried to make the move, there was obviously contact.
Oh, it was incredible because Mike Pearson was on my way, and I don't think he looked in the mirror, because if not, he should let me go by. And Danny hit on my back wheel. I nearly spun off, but I managed not to spin, and that was a luck win.
How close of a call was it for you?
Oh, I nearly spun when Danny hit on my back.
Were there any other concerns coming down? Well, here's Teresa getting the kiss from across the nose wing in this congestion. Were there any other concerns, fuel, tires, anything coming to those last laps?
Everything was really good, and the pit stop was fast. The team made incredible work, on the pit.
Let's talk about that last pit stop. The water on the track just above your pit. You had to lock up the brakes up front. You almost didn't get stopped.
Yeah, I thought I was going to miss, but they advised me on the radio there was water there.
Well, Paul, it's been 5 years since Pat Patrick has won back-to-back races. Gordon Johncock did it at Indianapolis in '82 and then at Milwaukee. Emerson Fittipaldi has now done it in Cleveland and now here in Toronto.
Just behind Emerson Fittipaldi, now shaking hands, a very happy Gary Rovazzini, the crew chief on the car. 2 victories in a row. We'll be back to talk with second place Danny Sullivan right after this. We're back in Toronto now. The engines are silent, and Emerson Fittipaldi has written his name as the winner of the second race at Exhibition Place in Toronto for the IndyCar. Sullivan second, Rahal third, followed by Roberto Guerrero and Michael Andretti in the second half of the top 10. Most notable there is Scott Goodyear, 8th place in front of his hometown crowd. Now let's meet second place Danny Sullivan with Bruce Jenner.
Well, with me is Danny Sullivan, and Danny, I have to say, you gave it a good shot.
Well, we did, but that was kind of a little luck on the last lap. Emerson got held in the traffic, and I just took a shot at him, and he wasn't about to have any of it, and he closed the door, and but it was a fun race.
You did stick your nose in there.
Well, I had to have a shot. I figured, what the hell, I've been going to give a shot at winning. We haven't won one yet this year, and we were going to give our best shot.
Well, it really was a good try, and you know, as I know from all the racing that I do, that you have to have a good crew chief to get you there to into the winner's circle and everything. And Chuck, you did a great job with the car.
Well, it's been a good car for us. It's over a year old now, and it's never really let us down, so we're always glad to come back to it when we have to.
All right. Well, good job, and congratulations to all the Penske guys. Paul Page.
Thank you, Bruce. And with that win, Fittipaldi moves up in the points, but the top of the order remains the same, with Rahal leading, followed by Michael Andretti, Roberto Guerrero, his dad Mario, and then Emerson Fittipaldi. So for a final moment, Jackie Stewart, review of this race.
Well, I think Bobby Rahal drove a well-judged race until, frankly, Emerson Fittipaldi took advantage of him. From that point, I don't think Bobby was a serious threat to Fittipaldi. I made mention of Emerson's use of the racetrack from time to time. However, it was effective. It allowed him to get there and, of course, get the checkered flag. It just goes to show, as we said earlier in the show, you're never finished until the checkered flag falls. And had that been the case, we almost saw one of the most dramatic situations that could have taken out both those drivers in almost the final corner of this racetrack. So it was an exciting race, well judged by Fittipaldi in the end, and of course he deserved his victory.
Here in Toronto, the racing is now done, and Emerson Fittipaldi is the champion 2 in a row for Emo. This is Paul Page for Jackie Stewart, Bruce Jenner, and Gary Gerould. So long from Toronto, Canada.